Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today we're looking at this image of the Mars Emperor. Now if you haven't seen this video, I did it about a month or so ago. I've got it up here. Yeah, beginning of October I did this, so just over a month ago. Now this is part 2 to that. Part 1 is this one. Now this has been measured at over 200 feet tall. This head, this giant carving in the rock here, and you can actually see where it's constructed, and you can see part of the rock that's fallen away here, and you can see these two rectangular parts here, and it's kind of sheared off here. The rock's actually split away and fallen down. So this was constructed and carved. It's not just carved, it's constructed and carved. That means this is architecture and not just a rock that's been carved, okay? It's a bit more complex than just a straight carving. This is construction, in other words, architecture. It's very, very large. Estimated height of this by other experts is 246 feet from the chin to the top of the head here. I don't think it's quite that big. I think it's a bit less than that. I think it's about 200. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It's absolutely enormous, but it's not the biggest one in the area. Oh no. Now, this is going to get interesting because I put this Gigapan up a while ago, and now I've spotted this thing. Now, this thing has been doing the rounds for many years amongst researchers on Mars, specifically the Curiosity images, because this actually shows up from a long way away. This is absolutely huge. Now, I'll show you where the Emperor is down here. Now the Emperor is over 200 feet tall, okay? So that would make it one of the largest statues ever found anywhere. Not just on Mars, but anywhere. But then we have, if you follow up here, this thing. Now this may not look like much from this angle because we're seeing it from the back side, okay? This is another huge carving of a person. And you can see these striations. This is erosion partly on the side here. You can see these erosion lines here. But you can see what this does show are teeth. You can see some teeth here. 1, 2, and 3, okay? This is the nose here, nose area. But you can't really see the face very well because we're looking at it from the back. We can only see the edge. This is the cheekbone. These are teeth here at the bottom here. And this is the forehead at the top. So we can't see all the detail because we're at the wrong angle. We're actually looking at this from a very long way off, and the camera's zoomed right along the edge of Mount Sharp, along here, and is looking at it from the back. But what I have done is I put an insert here of the same thing here, seen from the side. And from the side angle, you can see exactly what it is, okay? Now this is from Sol 1286. There is a link here. If you click on this, all the links will be below anyway. You can come to these Gigapans and everything else. But if you follow this link, this will take you to the Gigapan of this thing, which I will do in a minute. This thing is absolutely massive, okay? And what this shows the structure where the Mars Emperor is, this guy here, the Emperor. This massive dome, this is like a long barrow kind of dome. It's very long. I would say it's over 1,000 feet long. It's probably 1,400 or maybe longer. I don't know exactly how long it is. It's extremely large. But this in height is somewhere around 500, 400 feet or something like that. It's absolutely huge. So this giant head here, which is carved into the side of the mountain, is something around 500 or 600 feet tall from the chin to the top of the forehead here. And you can clearly see those striations along the side, the erosion lines where the wind is blown along the side of it here. That's wind erosion. And you can see the eye, the nose, and the mouth here. And that corresponds to this. So the Emperor is down here, on the edge of here. You've got this big dome. If you follow this down, you can just about make out something sticking out there. Now, on this bit sticking out, at the bottom of that bit is the Mars Emperor, but unfortunately we can't see him from this angle because there's stuff in the way here. There's a big rock and some structures and stuff in the way. You can clearly see that this structure is artificial. We've got square and rectangular parts to it here. It's constructed. And when looked at from above, a lot of these things look perfectly natural. But when you look at them from the ground in more detail, you can see that these are constructed. You can see the construction parts to it here. There's a rectangle here, just here. See that straight line? Now, it's not very clear. This is a very long way off. This is miles away from the rover, unfortunately. I'll quickly show you the Gigapan that that's on. And then we'll look at the Mars Emperor in more detail, because I've got some very interesting things to show you with that. Because, well, I'll show you that in a minute. We'll just have a quick look at this, because this shows the Gigapan, where this comes from. And it gives you a better context of how far away this is and how large it is, okay? Now, this is on Mount Sharp, near the base of Mount Sharp. There's the dome, the long barrow dome there. And the Mars Emperor is on the end of this, out of shot, unfortunately. Now, this is quite pasty, and there's not a lot of shadow in here, so you can't see the shapes very well, but you can see them. You really have to take a clip of this and darken it a bit, really, to see the shadows and bring out the shapes. But this gives you an idea of scale. This is miles and miles away from the rover. Now, the rover, when it took this, was all the way over here somewhere, near the middle of this. Now, this is a double pan I've done here. This is actually all 1 Gigapan, but it's so long, I had to chop it in half and put the half down here, the lower half. The right half is at the bottom, and the left is at the top here. So it was all the way along here. Now, the rover was somewhere over here, near the middle of this, down here somewhere, when it took these photos. You've got the Mars Forbidden City that I've shown many times before up here, with all the pyramids and domes and everything else. And we have the, all the interesting kind of buttes and weird structures down here. The rover, when it took the picture of the Mars Emperor, was in this area here, near this stuff here, okay? And it pointed the camera all the way along the side of Mount Sharp, the base of Mount Sharp here, all the way along to here, and was looking right down here, okay? To this area, which is miles away, okay? There's a good couple of miles, maybe, it may be more than 2 miles, it may be 3. It could even be more than that, a long way off. So, but the camera on the rover, it has one actual sensor. Now, it has multiple cameras, but they use the same sensor. Yeah, and the ChemCam has a very powerful zoom on it. So it's zoomed all the way along here, right down to here, to look at this area, and that's what we see when we look at this. Okay, but you can clearly see, if you darken this image, you can clearly see that this is a giant head. So this is probably around the 500-foot mark, okay? Absolutely huge. It's not the largest thing like that on Mars, because there are other giant faces and carvings elsewhere. But this is massive, okay? You can actually see that quite clearly. You can see the eye, you can see the nose, you can see the mouth. It's not pareidolia. The pareidolia police will probably come along and try and trash this video like they do all my videos about statues, because they're in complete denial. The word pareidolia itself is a deep state talking point, which is used in the same way as swamp gas and weather balloons were, or conspiracy theorists. Words conspiracy theorist were invented by the CIA to prevent anyone criticizing the narrative on the JFK assassination in 1963. And anyone who disputes that doesn't know what they're talking about, because that is a fact, okay? So don't come on this channel and start spouting the pareidolia word, because I will remove you immediately, okay? I'm not having it. I have hundreds of examples of these, and I'm going to show you a few of them in a minute. I don't tend to get a lot of grief on my channel now. I used to years ago when I started, 7 or 8 years ago now. A lot of people used to use that word a lot. And the weird thing is, whenever I had anything published in the newspapers, they would always put this disclaimer saying it's pareidolia, blah, blah, blah. Experts say this. Well, okay. Well, how many of these experts have actually looked at the Mars images, I wonder? And how many of them are part of the deep state, I wonder? Yeah, so there we are. But basically, what we have here is proof of a royal line on Mars. Now, I'm going to show you, this is the Mars Emperor. Like I said, this thing is absolutely huge, but the size doesn't really matter. What we're going to be looking at now are the actual facial details here. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's get a bit closer. And I want you to pay attention, particularly to the shape of the nose coming down like this, and the chin sticking out there, the beard, and the shape of the head, the general shapes, okay? Now this nose comes down in a sort of point almost. It's sort of quite long, and this sort of points downwards, okay? We've got prominent cheekbones, even though they're damaged, and we've got a mouth that comes around like this. Now look at the little kind of wry smile there, okay? So take notice of those shapes. Now what I'm going to show you now is this. Now this is a video I did previously, about a year ago, called The King of Mars. King of Mars found, carved relief in gold leaf. Now this is a carving on the side of a rock, which was probably attached to a building at one point. And what we have here is possibly the same person or a person from the same family. Okay? Now, why do I think that? Well, if you look at the actual facial features, which are very similar to this is in the middle here, what we have is a 3D rendition of one of the elongated heads from Nazca, near Nazca in Peru, where the Paracas come from, okay, in South America. And these skulls are also almost identical to many I found on the surface, and they're also identical in the morphology, or very, very similar in morphology to ones you would see in ancient Egyptian art, and some of the royal line of the ancient Egyptian family, okay? Some of the royals, okay? So those of you that are familiar with Ancient Aliens and Brian Forster and people like that will have seen lots of these things before, with these great big elongated heads. They were related to the royal line in South America, which is what this one is. And I think they were also related to the royal line in this area on Mars, or the Martian royals, okay? It's the same family, the same traits, the same nose shape, the same head shape, the same cheekbone. If you compare the shadows on this, if you follow the cheekbone down here, see this dark shadow? We have an identical shadow here, that shape sticking out here. We have the same sort of nose shape, the long, slightly flattened, but long nose pointing down, same here. And if you look at this one here, and then look at the Emperor, we have the same traits. This one has a beard, but this, I think, is possibly the same person, but depicted when younger. Now, often, if you were an ancient leader of, say, Egypt or somewhere like that, you would have carvings done of you when you were a sort of king, obviously, but there would be carvings of you at various points of your life. You would have royal portraits done, like royals still do now, and you would have portraits done when you were in your 30s, and in your 50s, then in your 70s, whatever, okay? And this is, when you look at the Queen's head on the coin, on a pound coin or something from the UK, obviously that's the Queen as she looked, not now, but as she looked a while ago, okay? They update the portrait every so many years, obviously, and the same would happen on another planet if there were coins or carvings or statues done on buildings or depictions on buildings or anywhere. They would be from various points of that person's life, and what I think we're seeing here are different depictions of either the same person or the father and son. In other words, this person here was probably a king, and this person here was probably a king. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a giant 200-foot statue carved of you. You'd have to be a pretty important person to warrant such a huge undertaking and construction like this, okay? Architectural statue build here. This isn't just carved, this is architectural, okay? A lot of planning and effort went into building this. It wasn't just done willy-nilly and carved with a little chisel on the side of a rock. This one is nowhere near as elaborate, but has some very interesting details, including a big earring or something. This was probably done in gold. This looks like gold, but because of the colours of these images, you can't really tell. But basically, this is either the same person or the father of that person here, I would say. Judging by the facial features, it's almost identical in many ways. I can't prove it, not yet. We need to find more examples of this person or the same family, but I have done that already, and I have found others, many statues. In fact, if you go on my channel, there's 102 videos that I've done on Mars statues so far, and some of these videos have multiple statues in. Some have 4, some have 3, some have 5, okay? So there's well over 200 examples of carved heads that I found on Mars. Some of them are actually quite astonishing. And this family trait of the pointed nose or the long nose does seem to be quite common in many of them. Not all of them, but I'm going to show you a few now. I'm not going to go through all of them now because it would take all day. I'm just going to show you some of my favourites, and I will put some clips of some of these in at the end and put them back to back so you can see if there's any more family traits that I've missed, because I'm sure some of you out there will see what I'm talking about here. So we got the Emperor. This is the King of Mars. Now, this may actually be the same person, as I've said, right? And it does seem to have a beard, although it's off colour. I don't know what's going on there quite. But this seems to be the same family. So this is either the same person or his father. This is a much older person. You can see that. But this may be him when he was younger, in his prime, in his 30s, 40s, I would say. Okay? So this king may have reigned for many years, and we don't really know how long they lived either. I assume they lived a sort of normal human lifespan, but they may not have. They may have lived way longer or shorter. We don't know that. Different planetary conditions could cause genetic mutations that would be conducive to very long life, or depending on the oxygen levels and the conditions, the lower gravity and the air quality and everything else. Who knows? And they may have had a very different diet to us. We don't know that. That's speculation. But then we have images like this. This is one I call the Priestess. I don't think this is part of the same family. Doesn't show the same traits, facial traits at least anyway. But this was interesting. One of the few examples of an actual female statue, I would say, on Mars. Then we have the Prince. Not the same family, but probably a prince or a king. This one has a crown. You can see the crown here. This is of a young man, probably in early 20s, I would say. This is a bronze, it seems. This looks like bronze. It's quite shiny when you enhance it. It's very reflective, a lot more so than most of the surrounding stuff here. This is what I call the Mars Prince. This was a video I did quite recently. Row of Statues Part 6 of the Mars Prince. That was done in September, so quite recent. There's loads of them in this area, in this video. There's about 5 in this video alone. So they're everywhere. There are statues and figurines and carvings all over the place if you know where to find or where to look and what to look for. There's also this one. Now this was one I called the Master of Mars. Now this was April this year, so going back a while. Master of Mars, Giant Statue 2020. Now, this was interesting. That's the Master of Mars there. He's also got a similar long nose. I'm not sure if it's the same. But if you look, I'm just going to play a very short segment of this video. And if you look in this rock here, there's another one carved here, right? Which is almost identical to this one. Look at the head shape here. And the nose coming down and the chin kind of sticking out there, okay? Now look very carefully at that. Remember that. And now, watch this. Okay, this is just going to show that there's another carving of him here. Whether it's the same one, or the same person, or the same family, or just the same type of people, it's hard to say exactly. There's not quite enough detail in this one. but we have the same head shape and the same basic physical traits and morphology, which is very similar to what we have in ancient Egypt and in places like Peru and other parts of South and Central America. This elongated head shape has also been found has been traced genetically back to parts of Europe. And there was a family, or at least a line of people in Europe who were probably royals in area, I think an area which is now part of Serbia in Central Europe. So there seems to have been a race of people on Earth that look very similar to these on Mars and had enormous elongated heads. And basically there were some in Central America, there were some in South America, there were some in Central Europe, and then there were some in Egypt. And we'll probably find that they're related to others in other parts of the world as well. But they have been traced genetically with DNA to various spots on Earth. And it may be that the kings and queens of these areas are related to the kings and queens of Mars. That is possible. I can't prove it yet, but the similarities are absolutely incredible and should not be dismissed offhand. There's too many similarities. The morphology is almost identical. The size, the shape, the cheekbones, the noses, the chins, everything, the teeth are almost identical in every aspect. In fact, you could probably measure them with calipers and you would find that they're identical in size and measurements as well. And there are multiple examples of skulls that I found like this in the area as well, not just carvings. So we have art, we have remains and archaeology that all matches up, not only in Central America, South America, Europe, Egypt, but also Gale Crater, Mars. And I would fully expect when we get to other parts of Mars with the new rover, which is going to be landing in Jezero Crater in February 2021, I fully expect to see more evidence of this around Jezero Crater as well. And we will be finding an awful lot of things there. Not only structures perhaps, but I think more of the sort of fossil variety, especially in Jezero, which was a massive lake, a bit like Gale Crater. But I don't think we'll be seeing many pyramids or massive structures like we do here. I think Jezero would be a bit different, but there will be an awful lot to see on the ground in the way of remains and fossils and stuff like that. Not only of marine biology, like plants and animals, but also other creatures as well that may have come along later as the water dried out, as we have seen in Gale Crater. So that's my prediction. Now, this emperor may be related to this giant head up here, which may be one of their ancestors, possibly the same family line. And you can see that one here, obviously an elongated head coming back like this. So this may be one of their early ancestors, early on in the actual Martian dynasty, okay? The royal dynasty. This is a much more recent one, I would say. May have been a couple of thousand years old, maybe 20,000 years old, maybe 100,000, don't know. We don't know an exact date for any of these things yet, but we will find out, okay? So this looks like a family tree here. We have ancient ancestors up on the mountain. We have more modern ones down here. We have this one here, which may be the same person, but at an older age. This looks like an old man in his 70s, I would say, judging by the sort of sagging and wrinkly features here. You can, if you watch the video, it goes into a lot more detail. I do recommend this. So that one is called The King of Mars, found. Then we have this one, which may not be related, but there's others in this video as well, which are really, really cool, actually. And you can see that there are traits that are similar with things we see on Earth, okay? Like this. The elongated head. I put this in for a laugh. I'm not sure if this is genuine, actually, this image of the Queen. I think it's probably fake, but it may not be. Or what it could be is a depiction of someone with leprosy. Okay, not necessarily an alien at all. Or power fan syndrome, or something like that. This is what doctors say about these elongated features on some of the ancient kings and queens. They call it power fan syndrome, but I'm not sure that's the case. You know, but not all of them seem to have these elongated features. This one looks much more normal, what you would call a normal human sort of face, I guess. Not the huge elongated skull. So this is a different family altogether, I would say. And this one, I'm not sure about. The Master of Mars. This may not be a king at all. I don't know, but probably is. If you have a giant statue carved of you, the chances are you're going to be a pretty important person, either a great warrior or king or queen. Okay, but this one looks a bit different. Dare I say it looks rather like a world leader, like a politician. Okay, so there we are. I'll put some clips of these and a bunch of others in a minute, and you can compare them back to back. But basically what we have here, it seems, is a royal line, a dynasty that can be matched up. This is not pareidolia, when you have different members of the same family or the same person being carved, not only on the 200-foot architectural carving like this, but also in smaller relief carvings on the ground, like this. You know, and when this is quite small. This relief carving, I would say, is only about 5 inches tall, maybe 6 or 7. It's not very large, but you can see it quite clearly. And if you watch the video, it does show it in a lot more detail, and you can see it a bit more clearly. This is the same family. Okay, I'm not saying this is exactly the same person. I can't prove that, but it looks like either the father or the same person at a much greater age. Okay, so thanks to Incognito Warrior for pointing this out. He actually commented on one of these videos earlier and said it looks like the same person, and I had hinted on that before, but actually it's a very good point, and it looks like we have a dynasty here. And there are many other examples of kings and queens and other figures that I found which may be related as well. Not all of them, but some of them. And there's a family trait here which can be traced back what seems to be thousands of years of a royal dynasty on the planet Mars. And they look very similar to some of the royal dynasties that we have or used to have on planet Earth. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the links down below as usual. I will see you soon.